Welcome back to Lionel's Laureate Locomotives. I'm Brian LaRosa, and this is LaRosa's Trains. In the last episode, I talked about Lionel's O-gauge models of the SD60 diesel, as well as its direct predecessor, the SD50, originally built by General Motors' Electromotive division in the 1980s. Another company that builds diesels is the same company that manufactures light bulbs, toasters, and other appliances, General Electric. Now don't get me wrong, GE did build straight electric locomotives like this one, but that's another story. In this video, I'm going to give you a double diesel retrospective covering two different modern GE locomotives, the 1980s era Dash 8 and its 90s era successor, the Dash 9. As my usual disclaimer, I do not own any Lionel model of either type, but the purpose of this video is to tell you the complete history of all such products from the low-nose Dash 8 to its LionChief wide-nose counterpart, and from the semi-scale Dash 9 to its realistic and prototypical scale versions. So join me for the ride, sit back and relax. This is going to be Dash great. First up, the real-life GE Dash 8 and Dash 9. Since the mid to late 1950s, General Electric had built thousands of diesel locomotives for mainline duty in North America and around the world. The Universal Series, aka the U-boats, were the company's first mass-produced hood units, cataloged until the mid-70s when they were supplanted by the Dash 7 series. While the Dash 7s were not quite as popular as Electromotive's Dash 2 series, they did sell fairly better than EMD's short-lived 50 series, including the SD50. In autumn 1982, GE outchopped its first 4-axle Dash 8 prototype, the B36-8, number 606. It was augmented by a 6-axle testbed unit, the C36-8, number 607, in spring 1983. This was the same year when GE surpassed EMD as the #1 diesel locomotive builder for the first time. Both the B36 and Z36 were later upgraded from 3,600 horsepower to 3,900 horsepower. The purpose of the Dash 8 series was to incorporate a computerized control system combining high horsepower with fuel efficiency and, equally important, providing high reliability with microprocessor-assisted maintenance and troubleshooting. Inside the cab, one notable feature was the diagnostic information display, aka the DID panel, located on the circuit breaker wall behind the operator seat. This allowed communication between the operator and the locomotive systems whenever a problem occurs. Early Dash 8 production locomotives include the B32, the C32, the B39, and the C39. All these models, as well as the two testbed units, initially had the curved roof cab, resembling the Dash 7s. Now for those of you who are new to GE locomotives, the B and C refer to their respective wheel arrangements, either a pair of 4-wheel trucks or a pair of 6-wheel trucks, and the 2-digit number designates the horsepower rating multiplied by 100. For example, the C32-8 is a 6-axle diesel locomotive rated at 3,200 horsepower. All the classic Dash 8 models, except for the C32, were changed to the enhanced versions, where the now flat-top cab roof was raised to match the height of the hump behind the cab, giving a more definitive spotting feature of a typical low-nose Dash 8. In late 1987, GE introduced its first ever 4,000 horsepower single-engine diesel locomotive, the C40-8, followed by the 4-axle B40-8 a few months later. They are also called the -840C and -840B, respectively, as the builder formally changed its naming style from the -8 suffix to the word dash, spelled out as the prefix. The B and C then became the suffix of each model name. However, some railroads still use the older nomenclature for not only the -8, but also the -9. Needless to say, to each their own. In 1988, GE modified its -8 demonstrator number 808 with a prototype wide-nose safety cab and renumbered it as 809. The builder's first official safety cab locomotive was the -840CW, first delivered to the Union Pacific Railroad the following year. The 4-axle -840BW was also offered, and the only original buyer was the Santa Fe. Looking to replace its aging fleet of EMD-built F40PH diesels, Amtrak turned to GE for a more modern passenger locomotive. The initial result was the -832BWH, equipped with head-end power, as what the H stands for. This culminated in the design of GE's Genesis series, the mainstay of Amtrak for over 30 years. A Canadian version of the C40-8 is the -840CM, assembled with a full-width cowl body, as well as a pair of 6-wheel Dofasco trucks. Among the final domestic -8s were a couple of high-horsepower wide cabs, built between 1993 and 1994. The first was the -841CW, producing just 100 horses more than the C40. Union Pacific and Santa Fe were the only buyers. The other variant was the -844CW, built solely for CSX and numbered in the 9000 series. This unusual locomotive contained some of the more advanced components that were introduced in the -9, but was assembled with the older trucks from the predecessor line. More about them a little later. All the wide-nose -8s were built with desktop controls, which significantly contrast with the traditional left-hand control stands utilized by the low-nose versions. By the time the -8 production ended, the best seller was the 40CW, nearly 800 units of which were built. The next product line of GE locomotives was the -9 series, introduced in 1993. It includes a pair of high-adhesion trucks, electronic fuel injection, and 4,400 horsepower. The new truck design is perhaps the best way to distinguish between this locomotive and the -8. While some early -9s were fitted with the DID panel, most have a set of graphical computer screens built conveniently on the desktop control console. The primary model of this product line was the -944CW, but it wasn't the only option. A 4,000 horsepower low-nose version was requested by Norfolk Southern and called appropriately the -940C. This was soon succeeded by the wide-nose -940CW, over 1,000 units of which were sold to NS. Another Canadian version was introduced with a 4-piece windshield, the -944CWL. Its comfort cab resembled the C40-8M, but the rest of its body was built as a hood unit rather than a covered wagon. Still, the C44W is the most popular -9 from GE, and the biggest purchaser of this model was BNSF, which ended up with at least 1,500 units by the time production ceased. As the years passed, many railroads continued to operate their -8 locomotives until the mid to late 2010s, when they were gradually being retired. Even the wide cab versions are due to withdrawal. While some Dash 8s were scrapped, others found new life on short-line railroads, as well as preservation at several museums. On the other hand, the Dash 9s are still in service, although a lot of them have been rebuilt with alternating current traction motors and their associated equipment. This resulted in the AC44 C6M, akin to the original AC4400 CW that was produced alongside the direct current Dash 9 during the 1990s. Notable users of the C6M include Norfolk Southern and Canadian National, both of which preferred DC traction until 2008 and 2012, respectively. Regardless of those changes, the GE Dash 8s and 9s will always be cherished for their long-time reliability by means of railroad history media and model trains. Lionel's first O-Gauge Dash 8 diesel was announced in the 1989 Pre-Toy Fair Edition catalog. It was modeled after Union Pacific C40-8, number 9100, the first of its kind for the UP. Major features include 2 classic Pullmore motors, Magna traction, a flashing beacon light on top of the cab, and an electronic horn. In the 1990 Volume 1 catalog, the next locomotive was the 4-axle Santa Fe B40-8, number 8206, which was offered as a 6-car freight set. It included 2 hoppers, a gondola, a refrigerator car, a flat car with trailer, and a boxcar with the end-of-train device. While the B40 did have the same operating features as the C40, it lacked the electronic horn because the reefer car was equipped with rail sounds, producing diesel roar, horn, and bell. (1992) Book 2. There's another freight set consisting of a Norfolk Southern Dash 8 40C, number 8689, 5 flat cars with triple crown trailers, and an extended vision caboose. Again, this diesel does have the same features as the Union Pacific version, including the electronic horn. To my knowledge, the NS-8 apparently runs backwards as the default forward position. The reason for this was that Norfolk Southern originally ordered many locomotives configured to long hood forward operation, meaning the control cab and the nose, or short hood, are at the extreme rear rather than the front. Examples include the B32 and C39-8s. However, by the time the C40-8 came out, NS decided to designate the short hood as the front for this and all subsequent locomotives. 1993, Book 1. Lionel's second -840B is painted in the black and yellow colors of the Susquehanna Railway and numbered 4002. Not a whole lot to say about this diesel in terms of its features, but it's still nice. 1993 Stocking Stuffer and 1994 Spring Releases Catalog. A non-powered Santa Fe B40-8, number 8212, was offered as a stocking stuffer to go along with the previously released number 8206. In the Spring Releases section, 3 C40-8s were announced. One is another Norfolk Southern locomotive, number 8688. Since Lionel offered the 1992 freight set, this unit is equipped with the LionTech electronic reverse unit, so it can run simultaneously with number 8689 as a multiple unit arrangement. The other two Dash 8s were painted as CSX 7500 and 7643. Both engines also have the LionTech E-units for the same purpose as the NS version. All the three C40-8s appeared again in the 1994 Consumer Catalog. 1994 Stocking Stuffer and 1995 Spring Releases Catalog. There's another Susquehanna B40-8, number 4003, listed as a stocking stuffer, and it does have the LionTech E-unit to lash up with number 4002. Our next railroad name is Chicago and Northwestern, as painted on two Dash 840C spring releases, numbers 8501 and 8502. The former is the first Lionel Dash 8 equipped with digitally recorded rail sounds, while the latter has only a diesel horn. Both engines also include working ditch lights for more prototypical modern operation. Regardless of their sound differences, the C&W Dash 8s can be operated together thanks to the LionTech units. These engines were reissued in the 1995 Consumer Catalog. Now we go to Lionel's first ever O-Gauge Dash 9, featured on the cover of the 1996 catalog. This locomotive is painted in the solid black GE demonstrator scheme, a perfect start to the O-Gauge Dash 9 history. Notable features include Rail Sounds 2 and Trainmaster Command Control, or TMCC. The rest of the features are virtually the same as in the Dash 8. The demo version was shown again in the 1997 Classic Catalog, which also featured Lionel's second Dash 9, painted in the colors of the Southern Pacific. I like the way this locomotive is displayed on one of the picture slides in a billboard set. By the way, both the semi-scale Dash 8 and Dash 9 can run on 031 curves or wider. 1998 Volume 1. The third railroad name for the Lionel Dash 9 is BNSF. Number 739 is a deluxe version equipped with TMCC and rail sounds, whereas number 745 is a conventional engine with signal sounds, i.e. horn and bell only. The latter is also upgradable to command control. Additionally, a double diesel locomotive set consist of numbers 739 and 740, both of which are deluxe featured. 1998 Volume 2. This is the Conrail Unit Trailer Train Set featuring a B40-8, number 5065, and 4 flat cars with JB Hunt trailers. The locomotive itself is Lionel's first -8 equipped with command control, and probably the last semi-scale, low-nose version ever produced. In addition to TMCC and rail sounds, the newest feature on this engine is a pair of oscillating ditch lights. (1999) Volume 3. We now see Lionel's first full O-scale -9 CW, initially announced in Amtrak, BNSF, Santa Fe, and Norfolk Southern paint schemes. Like the semi-scale versions, these locomotives can negotiate 031 curves, but most of the later scale -9s are intended to run on 036 curves or wider, since Lionel's Fast Track system came out. Each livery was available in both command and conventional versions. With any purchase of the former, Lionel also offered the TMCC control system for free. The latter had the option to be upgraded with both TMCC and rail sounds electronics. All these versions include 2 flywheel motors, which became standard on all Lionel -9s from that point on. 2000 Volume 1. 2 more paint schemes of the -9 were announced: BNSF Warbonnet and CSX. Ironically, CSX never purchased an actual -9 in real life because it ended up with 53 C44-8Ws, but still dubbed them as -9s. While they were built with electronic fuel injection, they do not have high adhesion trucks. Once you find out the differences between the Lionel model and the prototype, you can't unnotice them. Now, I hate to be nitpicky of some details, but I should also point out that the Santa Fe and BNSF -9s have a gull wing cab roof like this. Again, you can't unnotice the differences. Like the 1999 releases, the BNSF and CSX engines were offered in both command and conventional versions. 2001 Volume 1. Another 2 railroad names were cataloged: Union Pacific, numbers 9659 and 9717, and Canadian National 2529. Now, for you rivet counters, the real CN-9s were delivered with pork chop style windshields, but this Lionel model only has the rectangular windshield. I'm sorry, but you can't always get every detail from them. All the 3 -9s have TMCC and were reissued in the 2001 Volume 2 catalog. 2002 Volume 1. Lionel introduced its first 4-axle -8 BWs in O-scale. There's Amtrak number 509 in the fan favorite Pepsi can scheme, and BNSF 580 Now, it should be noted that the scale Dash 8s are almost exactly the same length as the Dash 9s, measuring roughly 18 inches long, which means their bodies look nearly identical to each other. So, the only differences are the trucks and fuel tanks. In fact, the real Dash 9s are the first GE locomotives exclusively with 6 axles, and no 4-axle versions exist. On a more technical note, a typical Dash 9 measures 2.5 feet longer than a 6-axle Dash 8. For that reason, Lionel's models are not the most realistic on the market, but it's cheaper for the company to use the same body tooling for both the Dash 8 and 9, with the only difference being their wheel arrangements. Fair enough. 2002, Volume 2. We see the same Dash 8 cab numbers in both Amtrak and BNSF liveries, plus one additional number for each road name. In the same catalog, there's our first Lionel Dash 9 freight set, consisting of Canadian National engine number 2528 and 4 tank train cars. A proper tank train set always includes an A car for loading and unloading the liquid cargo, 1 or more intermediate cars, and a B car with the end of train device. These are all connected with petroleum hoses. Neat. 2003, Volume 2. This lineup includes Chicago and Northwestern and Southern Pacific Dash 9s, which were initially categorized as 2004 products, so they were featured again in the 2004 Volume 1 catalog. While the Dash 9s were reissued, there's another Amtrak Dash 8 painted in the Phase 4 scheme. Not much to say about them, but they're cool. 2004 Volume 2. The same 3 diesels are shown again, this time with Magna traction, but the CNW-9 does not have that feature. I'm not sure why. I guess Lionel wanted to add Magna traction to some of its TMCC-equipped O-scale locomotives. In the 2005 preview section of the catalog, there's a Canadian Pacific 6-car grain train set led by a Dash 9. In real life, CP had never bought any Dash 9 whatsoever, because it opted for the similar-looking AC4400 from GE. Another 2005 product is a conventional O-scale Santa Fe Dash 9 with Magna traction. It was offered separately along with a CSX SD60 and a BNSF SD70 Mac. Both the Santa Fe engine and the CP grain train were reissued in, you guessed it, the 2005 Volume 1 catalog. 2008 Volume 1. We have another tank train set led by a Norfolk Southern Dash 9. As such, it is the first on our list to be equipped with Lionel's Legacy Command Control. Funnily enough, this diesel is also the first Legacy engine owned by Eric Siegel, the guy who created his YouTube channel, Eric's Trains.
Norfolk Southern 9798, takes a green, over. That's good news, Norfolk Southern 9798, cleared outbound, out.
Lionel also offered a non-powered Dash 9 as a companion to the tank train set. In the same catalog is another Dash 8 BW painted in the Santa Fe war bonnet scheme. Now, this engine is somewhat an anomaly to all Lionel scale Dash 8s because it is the only example equipped with Legacy as of this video. To the best of my research, Lionel had not made another one like that for some odd reason. Maybe the scale Dash 8 isn't a good seller? Who knows? A non-powered version of the Santa Fe engine was offered for the same purpose as the NS-9. 2010 Volume 1. Here's the second Legacy Dash 9, dressed in the Amtrak Phase 4 livery. I'm not sure why Lionel made this model with 6 axles instead of 4, as they should be on the Amtrak Dash 8. I thought they already have the tooling to make the Dash 8 chassis. Pretty weird. 2010 Volume 2. Another Amtrak Dash 9 was offered with a new number, but there are a couple of prototypical road names in this catalog: BNSF and Canadian National, both of which were available in 2 numbers each. Regardless, all Dash 9s in this lineup are, again, equipped with Legacy. 2013 Signature Edition. A lot of Legacy Dash 9s in this catalog. Each road name has 2 powered units and 1 non-powered version. This lineup includes Santa Fe, BNSF, Chicago and Northwestern, Southern Pacific, Union Pacific, CSX, Norfolk Southern, Canadian National, and the British Columbia Railway. Just like CN, BC Rail bought some of its own Dash 9s with pork chop windshields, which are not present on the Lionel model, but never mind. 2018 Volume 2. Very interesting selection of Dash 9 paint schemes. As before, each livery, except for Norfolk Southern, has 2 Legacy units and 1 dummy unit. Unlike the 2013 versions, these engines have Bluetooth for compatibility with the LionChief Universal Remote or the smartphone app. First, we have 2 BNSF versions, one with the swoosh logo and one retaining the Santa Fe war bonnet scheme, patched with BNSF initials below the cab number. Likewise, there's a Southern Pacific Dash 9 with the initials and numbers in Union Pacific font. Speaking of which, there are 2 units, both powered and non-powered, in regular UP paint, plus 1 with the Cheyenne Service Unit shield near the front of the engine. Then we have Norfolk Southern number 8520, aka the Knuckles bonnet, which is based on a short-lived experimental rebuild called the AC-44 C6 CF. While similar to the AC-44 C6M, this locomotive was fitted with AC traction motors manufactured by CAF, a Spanish-based company. And lastly, there are 2 export road names: the Quebec North Shore and Labrador in Canada, and Pilbara Rail in Australia. We don't see many Australian locomotives in American model railroads, especially in O-scale. So this lineup offered 2 different patch units, BNSF and UP, 2 foreign versions, and NS 8520, with the rest painted in generic liveries. Awesome. Okay, that's pretty much all the O-scale Dash 9s made by Lionel, but we're not done yet, because we still need to cover the semi-scale wide cab Dash 8s equipped with LionChief and Bluetooth. Lionel announced its first examples as such in the 2022 Volume 1 catalog. Now before we get to that, I do want to point out that the tooling for the Dash 8 presumably came from MTH Electric Trains after its founder, Mike Wolf, retired in 2021. MTH used to make this locomotive as part of the Rail King semi-scale product line until 2019 or so. This is just my speculation, but when you compare a Rail King Dash 8 to the new Lionel version, they do look almost identical to each other, except for the truck design, which I'll discuss momentarily. Let's talk about the individual engines first in the 2022 catalog. There are all 4 U.S. Class 1 railroads: BNSF, Norfolk Southern, CSX, and Union Pacific. Since they're all equipped with LionChief, each have their own individually labeled handheld remote, but they can still be operated by the universal remote or the phone app. And yes, the minimum curve required to run the Dash 8 is 0.31. In the catalog, these locomotives were illustrated with the correct truck design, just like the MTH versions, but the actual production models, for some reason, appear to have the rather different high-ad trucks, which are not unlike the ones on the Dash 9. I have no idea why Lionel did that, but if anybody knows, please leave a comment below. And then we have an unusually colorful Dash 8 ready-to-run train set decorated with graffiti. As you can see, the locomotive and its freight cars all cleverly have fictional railroad names. I remember seeing a Lionel O-scale Union Pacific genset switcher that was offered with graffiti in the 2020 Volume 2 catalog. Unfortunately, I've heard that Lionel had to cancel this engine to prevent a potential lawsuit from UP, and that makes sense. I think that was a good idea to make an entirely fictional train set with graffiti, despite its legal controversies. 2022 Volume 2. The only Dash 8 featured in this catalog is in a Santa Fe 3-car autorack set. As you can see, this illustration suggests that this engine is a 4-axle Dash 8. But like all the new LionChief Dash 8s, the Santa Fe version came with 6-wheel, high-ad trucks instead. Again, I don't know why, but if someone does, please tell me. All these LionChief Dash 8s, including the 2 starter sets, were reissued in the 2023 Volume 1 catalog. Both the autorack and the graffiti train sets were labeled as still available in the inventory section of the 2024 Volume 1 catalog. Only the latter appeared again as such in the 2025 Volume 1 catalog. The last Lionel Dash 8s we come to in this video is from the controversial 2025 July release catalog. Some people are criticizing it for the small selection of items featured on only 44 pages, which is not many in a typical Lionel catalog, at least in this day and age. Maybe this is due to the godforsaken tariffs that are happening right now in America, though I personally don't care how big this new catalog is. It is what it is, and that's all I can say. In other words, the first volume of 2025 unquestionably has an extremely wide variety of trains, especially to celebrate Lionel's 125th anniversary, so I encourage you all to be grateful for that. The separate sale Dash 8s include Santa Fe, Conrail, Canadian National, and the CSX Spirit of America, number 1992. For those of you who don't know, CSX operated a political campaign train in 1992 for then U.S. President George H.W. Bush. The lead locomotive was painted with U.S. flags on both sides and named the Spirit of America. I don't know if Lionel will make a passenger set replicating the Bush campaign train. At least they did make the Union Pacific Bush funeral train back in 2019. It should be noted that all recent LionChief engines, starting in 2024 or so, will no longer include their own handheld remotes, except for ready-to-run train sets. I think that's a good thing for 2 reasons. 1, it reduces manufacturing costs for Lionel, And 2, it eliminates the redundancy of having one remote from every single LionChief engine you purchase. Of course, most people nowadays use smartphones, and the LionChief app really comes in handy to operate your trains. The universal remote, however, may be useful for a few people without smartphones. The very last locomotive on our list is from the CSX Spirit of America freight set, one of several commemorative Lionel train items in honor of the nation's upcoming 250th birthday. This engine is based on the same Dash 8 that pulled the Bush campaign train, but was renumbered to 7812 afterwards. Notice the new number in place of the presidential seal below the cab window, and of course, the CSX lettering in place of number 1992 on the wide nose. While the separate sale Dash 8s do not include their own remotes, this set does. Alright, the total number of Lionel Dash 8s is 30. That equals to 12 low-nose versions, including 7 C40-8s and 5 B40-8s, 7 scale B40Ws, and 11 semi-scale LionChief C40Ws. On the other hand, the total number of Lionel Dash 9s is 80. That equals to 6 semi-scale Dash 9s, 5 with TMCC and 1 conventional, and 74 full-scale versions, including 13 with TMCC, 7 conventional units, 38 with legacy, and 16 non-powered units. This is the biggest number of Lionel engines I've ever recorded. What do you think of the results? Let me know in the comments below. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the complete history of Lionel's Dash 8 and 9 diesels. Before closing this video, let's discuss the potential future for these locomotives. I would say the semi-scale wide-nose Dash 8 and the full-scale Dash 9 are most likely to be produced again. Since all recent legacy engines now have 4-digit addressing for the Cab 3 system, you can expect the same feature for the latter. It is a pity that Lionel stopped making the scale Dash 8 BW, but if they decide to bring it back at some point, then they would have the 4-digit addressing feature for sure. As for the older semi-scale versions, I personally think the low-nose Dash 8 deserves a return, but not very likely this time around. The Dash 9, however, would be too similar to the newer LionChief Dash 8, not to mention the high-add trucks that are present on both versions. I'm not sure whether Lionel still has the tooling for either of them, but it would be nice to see them again, sooner or later. Now there's no denying that the ES44AC is an extremely popular GE locomotive, and Lionel makes them virtually every year since 2009. But you should remember that if it weren't for the Dash 8, we probably would not see any modern locomotives like these, considering the wide-nose design that had very few changes over the years. Overall, the Dash 8 really helped General Electric stay strong with its locomotive sales up until the Wabtec era. The GE Dash 8, a commitment to successful railroading. Although the Dash 9s may fade into history by means of retirement or rebuilding, they are still in the hearts and minds of modern railroad enthusiasts for always and always. Once again, I would like to give credit to the Lionel Collectors Club of America, which has the complete digital archive of all the Lionel catalogs from 1900 to 2010. Without it, I would not possibly be able to make a complete history video like this one you've just watched. If you'd like to visit the archives, you must apply for membership at lionelcollectors.org. More recent catalogs from 2011 to present can be viewed publicly at lionel.com/catalogs. Links to both sites are in the description. Hopefully, you'll learn and appreciate the promotion of every train product manufactured throughout the company's long-time history. Since I've talked about GE locomotives, my pick of the month is a couple of YouTube videos. A tribute to the Dash 8 and Illinois Central's Blue Devils, uploaded by the Winnipeg Railfan. He did a pretty good job explaining some history of these locomotives, but most of his tribute video focus on the Canadian National Dash 8s, including the former Chicago Northwestern C40s from Union Pacific, the former Santa Fe C40Ws from BNSF, and the covered wagon C40-8Ms from both CN and BC Rail. Blue Devil is a nickname to a fleet of former LMS-8s that were last operated by CN and had Illinois Central initials. If you like to see these Canadian-owned locomotives, then I recommend watching these two videos. Links to both of them are in the description. Good work, Winnipeg. If you'd like to support La Rosa's Trains, I would greatly appreciate it. That can be done through my Patreon page at patreon.com/LaRosasTrains. Patrons will receive exclusive benefits, which are all explained directly on this page. Link in the description. Your contribution, regardless of your preferred membership, is essential not only to me, but to the future of La Rosa's Trains. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and be sure to hit the subscribe button so you can see what's coming up next from this channel. Anyway, that's all for now, and as always, thanks for watching. I'm Brian La Rosa, and I'll see you next time.